Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Saddlebunny podcast. Today, we are kind of in a new location, but actually we're in the same location that I have shot almost all of Saddlebunny in, and that is my bed. We're comfy cozy in here. We've got a blanket. I've got my Stanley cup. You guys are on a tripod. Well, and you're also in my hand. If you're listening to this episode on a podcasting platform like Spotify or Apple Music or wherever, this is the same old for you. We have been here a million billion times, and you've been in my bed before. We have recorded these episodes before together, but for YouTube viewers, this is a first. I mean, I've shown my bed in like vlogs and stuff, but I don't think I've ever like recorded a full video just sitting in my bed. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about, we're going to do a video, or not a video, an episode I have done quite a few times before on Saddlebunny, which is called Things I Like Right Now. Now, these episodes are kind of inspired by back in like the early 2010s, a lot of YouTubers used to like do like monthly favorites videos. They'd be like my April favorites, my May favorites, whatever it is. And they would just list like their favorite things they bought or acquired in that month. So this is kind of going to be like that, except I don't just talk about items. I talk about literally whatever I want. Sometimes it's information I've recently learned. Sometimes it's music, content, shows I like, trends, whatever that might be. And I just talk about whatever I want for the podcast episode, which is kind of what I do every time. But this is a dedicated episode for literally like, here are, 10 to 12 random things that make no sense and are not connected to each other literally at all. And I'm going to talk your ear off about them. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to just jump into this list now. I wanted to have today be a more lighthearted, fun episode of the podcast because I feel like last week talking about the internet, it was more doomy, gloomy, like a lot more, I don't know, just we talked about concerns and issues in the world. Now this week, we're just going to talk about happy things that are awesome that we literally love so much. So we're just going to dive right into this with first on the list, which is, and again, let's try to all remember that this list makes no sense and none of these things are connected and it's just random. Dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. So I have always loved dinosaurs. I can't say that this is like a recent thing that I'm obsessed with. I've literally always loved them, but I recently have fallen deeper in love with them. I don't know what it is. They're just like coming up a lot in my life. Ethan recently bought me a little Doedicurus like toy, like I don't know what to call it, like an action figure or like a little figurine, I guess. I don't know, like where like the zoo animals are in Tractor Supply and stuff. He got me a Doedic, but it was from there. And the Doedicurus is like kind of looks like an armadillo, but it has like a tail with like spiky things on it that it can like whack into things. I don't know. I freaking love them. I think they're so cute. It's one of my favorite dinosaurs. I have it on my desk and I crocheted a little flower to wear and it just sits there and makes me happy and I smile at it and I love it. I love it so much. And recently I've decided that I want to get a dinosaur tattoo. I have a lot of dinosaurs that I love, but I think the one I want to get a tattoo of is Ankylosaurus. It's kind of like a Doedic, but a little bit different. You guys are going to have to like Google images of these if you really want to know what they look like. To elaborate on my favorite dinosaurs, I also really love Tapejara and Yutyrannus. Tapejara is like a pteranodon kind of, but has like a sail on its forehead. And it's like, I think a lot bigger than a pteranodon, but I don't know. Really loving dinosaurs right now. If you don't love dinosaurs, you don't know a lot about dinosaurs, go look at them. They're cute. They're interesting. It's a whole other level of animal that you haven't been able to access in your life. So highly recommend. I'm really into dinosaurs right now. I'm going to feed off of that one and go into another thing on the list that kind of relates to this barely. And that is I'm really obsessed with crochet right now. Guys, I picked up crochet when I was like 19. Like I tried to pick it up and wanted to learn how to. My grandma's always crocheted and I was interested in it and I got a crochet hook and I tried. And I remember thinking it was so freaking hard and so confusing. And this is one of those things that I'm like, was it hard and confusing because I was just 19 and impatient, or was it actually hard and confusing? Because this time I picked it up within a night, I made a project and I was like, cool, I literally love this. The payoff is automatic for certain things. And that's everything I could need and want. I picked it back up went and got some yarn. I made some bookmarks. I found this really great tutorial on YouTube that taught me like the basic stitches, and I've just been running with it since then. I've been making granny squares most nights. I'm a really like restless person. Like I have ADHD, so I can't just sit still. I need to constantly be doing something, and being able to watch shows or listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks while crocheting is one of the best things maybe ever in the whole world. If you don't crochet, I really suggest it. I have knitted also in the past. I did successfully knit when I was younger, but I hated it, and I still hate it, and I stand by that. I just don't like it. I don't like the way that you knit versus the way that you crochet. Crochet feels more unstructured and random, which is what I love and what I personally enjoy about it. And I feel like I can do more. Like after you learn the basic stitches of crochet, I was like already coming up with ways that I could, modify patterns or make my own things without a pattern. And knitting, I don't feel like that, but maybe I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've knitted as well, but I've been loving crochet, and I'm crocheting a lot lately. And I want to make things for all my friends and give them little handmade gifts. I think that's so cute. Yeah, there you go. Crochet. Next thing on the list is a food item or a drink. I talk a lot about drinks on the podcast. I'm a drink girl. Okay. I love a good drink. Like I love a matcha, a chai, a coffee. I am always talking about different ways you can spice up your coffee or whatever. But lately, I have picked up a very healthy habit, and it is something very useful to me. And I'm overly excited to talk about it, okay? And that is lemon water. This is not a astounding, interesting, crazy thing, okay? This is not something that you're going to go, oh my God, I've never heard of this. Like, wow, how did you know? Like, yeah, dork. Like, lemon water's been a thing for maybe since Jesus was around. Like, everybody drinks lemon water. Use your brain. I have a really hard time with water because when I drink too much of it, I feel nauseous. Like I'm going to throw up. And if I like drink it too fast and I don't know. Water is not my friend usually. And so I have a hard time getting my water intake in. And I was drinking a lot of sparkling water, which I love, but sometimes you just want water, So I started filling my Stanley with lemon water every morning and night. And I don't know what it is about the lemons and the flavoring in the lemons, but it just changes the whole game for me. It makes it that I could chug it and not feel sick. And I don't know why that is. It also tastes amazing. It's basically lemonade with no sugar. Literally have it in here right now. It tastes so good. And I usually do 3 slices or 4 slices in my Stanley, kind of thicker slices. I'll squeeze them out over my ice, and then I fill it with water. And this is what I have in my Stanley at all times is lemon water. I drink it constantly. I feel like Ethan's kind of enjoying it too, because he when we're out and about and I have water or right before we go to bed, he's like, you have water? I hand it over to him. He's like, lemon water. It's like, and it also makes me feel fancy. Like I feel very cute drinking lemon water. I don't know if that makes sense, but I love it. And I have a giant bag of lemons in my fridge at all times now. It's something I can't go without. I think this has been going on for probably about 2 or 3 weeks at this point. 2 or 3 months. This started around Christmas time, I think, is when I started the lemon water thing. So I've been doing this for a while and not letting you guys in on it. And I'm so sorry, but here we are. Lemon water. Lemon water is the new Dr. Pepper. That's not true. I can't say that. That is not true. Anyway. Moving on to the next thing on my list. So I've been keeping this list of things I like and wanted to rant about for a while. And this is something that I did a while ago, but it's still piquing my interest to this very moment. And this is art museums / art history. I have been very interested in famous artists and their stories and stories behind their most famous pieces recently. I feel like because I was in this creative slump, I'm like, okay, how can I learn from other artists and people that are the greats from the past? Like, what did they do? What were their feelings about their favorite pieces of art? What's the story behind it? The history. And I am a huge history buff. I love archaeology. I love history. So adding that layer of backstory to pieces really helps me connect with them. And somebody that I've been really connecting with recently is Vincent van Gogh. If you don't know a lot about Van Gogh, I feel like everybody knows who Van Gogh is. He's the painter that painted Starry Night, Scream. I think he has one called The Bedroom or His Bedroom or something like that. That's very famous as well. I knew only what I had learned about him in school and in passing in certain moments, and not even in college, like in elementary school, I feel like. And I just knew that he was really crazy, cut his ear off, and was never successful during his lifetime. I recently have done a little bit more reading on him and learning about him and Starry Night and everything. And I can't believe how much of a myth most of Van Gogh's like most known facts are. So apparently he was not as crazy as we think he was. And he was ended up being diagnosed with epilepsy back then, but they believe that he was actually bipolar with delusions, which is really interesting to me. We didn't even know what bipolar was at that time, so it makes sense that they wouldn't have diagnosed him with it. And I think a lot of the crazy stories and the things that happened to him were because he was dealing with bipolar in an environment where they didn't know what it was and they couldn't help him. We did not have the tools to help him, which is really sad. I feel like a lot of times his work is painted is like, I don't know, it's like shown in the light of like this man's descent into madness and eventual demise because of it. But I don't really think that's it. And the more I learn about him, the more I don't know, he seems more like a real person than just this crazy guy. So from what I learned, he was actually very successful in his life. He was doing lots of big shows. He was friends with a lot of the, renowned artists, writers, people in the arts in those days. He had like really big shows that he'd been put in. He had been recognized a lot for his work and he wasn't unknown. Definitely his work has peaked since his death. Like it's way more popular after he was alive or after he was alive. But it's not to the extent that people make it out to be. Like, it wasn't like he just was like a nobody that was crazy and then all of a sudden he died and everybody liked his stuff. That's not it at all. He was definitely successful in his lifetime. And he actually, when he was going through all this, he cut off his ear because he was hearing voices, which is bipolar with delusions. He ended up being put in an insane asylum by his brother, who was paying for him to get treatment there. His brother loved him very much, which is his older brother. I feel for him and I can't imagine what it would be like to have this younger brother who is incredible at painting and is dealing with some kind of illness that is preventing him from doing this, and no one can help you. Like, you see how beautiful this person is, but no one can help you fix, or not fix, I guess, but just get them the help that they need to live a normal life. So he put him in an insane asylum and he told them, if he's not allowed to paint, I will stop paying for this. He needs to have access to paint at all times. I'm pretty sure this is true. Van Gogh didn't pick up a paintbrush until he was like 30 years old, really late in his life. And it said it's because he just loved art so much and was always interested in it that he felt like he didn't like deserve to do it. And I relate to that sometimes. He went to the asylum and the bulk of his body of work was painted during his time in the asylum. He painted Starry Night from the asylum, and it's actually the view out his window in the asylum. It's tweaked a bit. It's a little bit different than what it originally looked like. He has made some artistic changes. He's like moved some things around, some of the geography to make it more visually interesting, but it is the view from his window at the asylum, which I think even makes me like Starry Night a lot more, makes it a little more interesting. And I don't know, he wrote letters to his brother for a long time about what he wanted to paint, and Starry Night was something that he really loved. And the first time he painted it, he believed it was a failure and that it wasn't as good as it should be, which is another interesting tidbit about him. He ended up being, I guess that they say that he was like the least insane, like the least crazy person in the asylum. He was staying at a very nice asylum, probably not the one that you are picturing in your head right now that's like crazy and they mistreat patients. He was at a really nice one that his brother was paying for, and they let him have outside time. And it is said that he was loved by nurses and doctors, and that he was pretty sane for the most part. He didn't need to be on watch all the time, and he painted and thrived in this environment, and was diagnosed with epilepsy, which obviously he didn't have, or maybe he did, but not the way that they definitely didn't just have epilepsy. So he ended up leaving the asylum, and unfortunately after being there, I can't remember how long he was there, but it was a long time, and it's something like 300 pieces of art he made there, which is nuts. He ended up shooting himself like 3 weeks after he got out, and that is where he met his end. And it's sad to think about, because I feel like I said, he's always depicted as this guy that's was like fighting madness all the time, and like lonely, a failure, never did anything right, and then ended up killing himself because of all this. And really, it's like he had success in his life. He had people that really cared about him, and he was painting and loved it so much, and he just there wasn't the tools to get him better. And that's so interesting to hear, now looking at the fame that he has for what he's done. So I've been really interested in art history, really interested in studying like the great artists and what they've done, and also going to art museums. We went to one in January and it was so fun. I had the best time. Me and Ethan wandered around for hours looking at everything. I didn't know that the Phoenix Art, I think that's what it's called, it's just the Phoenix Art Museum. I didn't know that it had some of the pieces it did. They have a Monet there, which is cool. He's one of the Impressionists. I think he actually founded the Impressionist movement. I have to say, I don't really understand the Impressionists. I don't really like their work. And the Monet piece, I was like, what am I missing? I just don't love this. But I try to remind myself that like when you look at art, you're not going to connect with everything. And if you're someone who's not an artist, but you want to go to museums, you want to go look at things and decipher them and think about them and talk about them in an intelligent way, just remember that not everything is going to connect with you. And you might look at a piece and it does nothing for you, and then another piece does everything for you. And it's just because art comes from real life experience and kind of what someone has felt or seen in their life. And if you haven't felt or seen similar things, I think sometimes it can be hard to connect with pieces. But really, like, no interpretation of a piece is wrong. It's whatever you get from it. And that's the whole idea of art. And yeah, but I've been loving going to art museums. I've been loving just standing there quietly and looking at things, taking pictures of different things, like really looking at the way someone uses light, shadow, color, just all these things to make interesting pieces. And another thing, this was said in a video that we talked about in the last episode of Saddlebunny, which is about design. He was talking about how design doesn't need to be obvious. Good design is interesting. Obvious is not interesting. So I like that too. And I've been thinking a lot about that and how I can incorporate that into the things that I make. How do I make something less obvious? How do I hint at things? How do I let my viewer do a little more digging into what I made instead of just spelling it out for them all the time. I think that's interesting. So that was the next thing on my list, art museums. We're going to go to the next thing, which is an item. Let me talk about this. K18. Now, I got this for Christmas and Georgia really loved it. It is a like serum or something for your hair. It replaces your conditioner for a few weeks. You do it in like rounds. And so you won't condition your hair in the shower. You'll get out, let it get a little bit damper, like towel dry it. And then you put the K18 on it. And it's, I think, rebonds your hair on the molecular level, reversing the damage of split ends and all the other things. And guys, I did it right after Christmas and my hair, it's now February like 5th. It still feels amazing. It still feels just as good as it did when I first did the treatment, which is remarkable to me. Like really I'm impressed. I'm very impressed by this. And I loved it. It's really expensive. I did get the travel size, like the little sample size. And I've used that for the whole round and I still have some left over. I don't know how much, but if you're interested in doing it, I really, really highly recommend it. I ate that shit up and my hair feels amazing. So there's your little item plug. Next thing we're going to talk about. It's a book series. The Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. Ugh, I could talk about this for the rest of my freaking life, you guys. Red Rising is a sci-fi series set in space. The main character's name is Darrow, and he is a red in a society divided by colors. Like different kinds of people are divided into different classes, basically. It's a class system, and each class is a color. The people look different according to color. He's basically starting a revolution to make everybody equal, and there's so much more to it than this, and I cannot begin to explain to you how much I love this book. I sobbed uncontrollably. I screamed for joy, happiness. I love a smart main character, and Darrow is so smart, but he also has flaws. And Pierce Brown, the author, is not afraid to take Darrow to rock bottom, which I love. I devoured these 3 books. I ended up taking a break between book 1 and book 2 because we were moving, and then I just lost track of it, picked it back up at the beginning of this year, and it was all I could think about. It was consuming my every thought, my every waking moment. That's how you know you're reading a good book. I rated every book in the series 5 stars. Actually, not the whole series. So there's the first trilogy, and then there is, I think it's a second trilogy, like the second era, basically, years in the future, and I'm currently on the first one of that. I read like 25, 30 pages of it thinking I was just going to keep this train rolling all the way through it, and I think I need a little bit of a break before I can dive back into it, so I am taking that break now, but it's no fault of the book. I just needed a a little bit of a break, but they are so good. If you're looking to get into a more intense sci-fi world, I would try it out. It's very similar to fantasy. The character relationships are amazing. Severo is my favorite character of all the books. I love him so much. I literally gagged for Severo. I would do anything to protect that man. So the imagery, it's like ancient Rome in space. I don't know how to further explain it to you other than you just need to fucking read it. You need to read it. It's so good. Okay. Next up, Moleskine Planner. I've been loving the Moleskine Planner lately. I, at the beginning of the year, bought a Panda Planner, which I thought I was really going to love. And I used it for like a week. I hate it. I hated it. There was just too many things to fill out. It's a lot about goal tracking and stuff. And I couldn't get myself to do it every day. It was way too many things in one day to do, especially because I'm journaling every day and I'm drawing every day. So that plus the planner just didn't make sense. And I have been really interested in something called commonplacing lately. It's this idea of like writing down things you find, like information you find, and keeping it in a journal somewhere. That way you can go look back on it at any time. And I felt like I couldn't do that in the Panda Planner, and I didn't want to do it in my journal, and I didn't want to have another notebook I was keeping track of. So I ended up nixing the Panda Planner and ordering the Moleskine Planner, and I have been using that for a couple weeks now, 2 or 3 weeks now, and I absolutely love it. It's the way that the planner is set up. It's weekly on one side, and then it is a blank page on the other. I commonplace on the blank page, and I also make my to-do list for the week. I will like write down ideas for podcasts or videos in that area. And it's just like a catch-all for all my little random notes that I need to hold on to for the week, but just on one page. And that is so helpful for me. I've been tipping in little tidbits of information as I find them if I need extra space. And I love keeping track of all the things that I'm ingesting and taking in for the week. It's like really, really, really fun. And I love it. So if you are looking for a planner, I really suggest the Moleskine Weekly. I think it's called Diary Planner or Weekly Diary. It's not really a diary. It also has like, I usually write like things I'm going to do on each day on the days of the week. And it has a monthly layout at the beginning. And I just use that for more like birthdays, holidays, big picture stuff. But yeah, really, really loving that. Next thing I'm going to talk about is, let's see. Oh, okay. This is a little bit of knowledge I recently gained that I am like very, very obsessed with right now. And I don't know. I'm just going to say what it is. Okay. Did you know that reading inside your head was not always a thing? I'm just going to let that sink in. Let me get a sip of this. Reading inside your head. Like when you read, you look down, you look at words and you read it internally. It only became a thing, the first written account of this being done, the 1500s. That just does not seem long enough ago for that to even make sense. Apparently, I think it was priests, I can't remember, but reading aloud used to be the only way that you could read. And I guess the reasoning for this, I watched a YouTube video about this earlier this week, was because we had no punctuation. So they had to like sound out things aloud to know what was even being written, which is so interesting to me. And then we have a written account of someone, I think a priest, mentioning another priest who he like views him reading internally and he's like, what the fuck is he doing? Like it blows this guy's mind. He's like, yeah, he was looking at the page and his eyes were moving over it, but no words came out of his mouth. It was insane. And the fact that nobody did this and that this guy witnessed him do it and was like, that's crazy. Like that just, it really blows my mind. I don't know how to explain it any other way, but like that is insane to me. So after this wave of people reading internally started happening, we then invented punctuation, which made reading internally better. If you go look this up, you can go look at like the tomes that people were reading before. And if you look at the page, you'll see why it was so hard to read internally, because it really looks like just gibberish with no periods, nothing. And I don't know really how they even read it aloud, but yeah, so freaking interesting to me. I can't believe that it was never a thing. And the invention, air quotes, or trend of reading internally became so popular that it changed reading forever, and it changed your experience of reading. I guess for your brain, like when you scan your brain, reading internally versus reading out loud are two different, very different experiences, and your brain gets a completely different thing from each one. So that's crazy interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That is just the most fascinating thing to me. And this kind of leads into kind of my next thing, which is that I've been interested in, which is philosophy and philosophers. I found this YouTuber called Park Notes on YouTube at the beginning of this year because he commonplaces and he keeps a pocket notebook. And I was reading his pocket notebook stuff. He's a theologian and a philosopher. And I've just been like, I don't know, listening to his podcast and learning about philosophy and stuff. He recently got me really interested in Plato, and I just bought Plato's Republic when I was at the bookstore this weekend. And I'm gonna, I don't know. I'm in my smart girl era right now. I'm now into philosophy and art history, okay? And I think philosophy and art feed into each other so well. And something that Parker said in his podcast that really inspired me, he was just talking about like, if you are someone who can understand philosophy and you can incorporate it into your art, or if you like write good books and you can instill things into those, like truths we know and I don't know, morals and stuff like that, those are my favorite kind of books when I leave them learning something much bigger than just like, entertainment. Then you're doing a great service as an artist. And that's really interesting to me. But the thing about reading internally that this reminded me of is they were just talking about different philosophies and the philosophical argument for certain things. And like, I don't know, like these like really finite topics that seem so like small that like are so far, I guess they seem like how do I say this? They just seem so unimaginable to us. Like the idea that we used to not read internally, that reading aloud was the only kind of reading, and that reading internally was like an invention. When you think about that, it makes you wonder what books were like before they had been read internally. Like, did the trend or invention of reading internally change the way we read books? And it clearly did. And then it makes you think like, wow, everything that we make now is a product of these inventions or trends from before. Like, we're all building off of them. And even though I come out the womb a fresh, brand new baby, no knowledge of anything, I build off of the works of adult people from like the 1500s, like the guy that read internally for the first time. Like, I get to get all of that knowledge that we've already worked for as the human race, and build on it like now. Isn't that so fascinating? Like, when you're born, you're not technically at day zero like we were before all this stuff, because so many people have come before you to work at certain things and to learn certain things, and you get to just keep building off that. And someday people will build off of you. Like, I don't know. So fascinating. And the idea that reading aloud was the only kind of reading kind of like shocked me and made me realize like, wow, there's so much about the world from different time periods that I don't know about. And it's hard for me to even talk about, the way things were at certain times or choices people made when I didn't even know that they didn't read aloud. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a crazy rant and none of that made any sense, but it did to me. Okay. It did to me. Next thing, we'll get into the next thing. A little bit lighter topic. Pal World. Okay. Pal World is a game for the Xbox and the Switch, I think. And you like capture little creatures and balls like Pokemon, and you can bring them back to your base, and they work for you, and they all have different like little traits and things that they do. And me and Ethan have been absolutely obsessed with the game. We have been playing it a couple nights a week since it came out. It kind of broke the internet. It became one of the fastest trending selling games on Steam ever. Steam is like the online place you buy games when you want to play on a computer. And geez, it has just blown up like crazy. It is so fun. I am obsessed with it. I've been loving catching all these little creatures and like building a little base with Ethan and just having my little pets that work for me and help me fight guys and stuff. And I don't know, it's like a better version of Pokemon. And it's also a Pokemon with guns. You can give all your little creatures guns. And if you are someone who likes to play games and you're looking for a new game to play, seriously download Pal World. It is worth the hype. It is so fun. Okay. Next thing. This is almost my last thing. We are moving through this list pretty quickly. The Clone Wars. Oh, guys, the Clone Wars. I I have recently been in my Star Wars era. I'm really loving Star Wars. I've seen the prequels and the like original 3, the original trilogy. And I don't know. I feel like I have a new respect for Anakin after watching all the movies. And we wanted to watch Ahsoka, but I told Ethan I refused to watch Ahsoka until we watched the Clone Wars because I had seen a bunch of TikToks of kids that watched the Clone Wars and how Ahsoka was so impactful for them because it kind of builds off Dave Filoni, I think is how you say his name, his story in the Star Wars universe. Like Dave's the producer of Clone Wars, the writer of Clone Wars, I think. I don't know. The way that he wrote it, like Ahsoka builds off of that. And I mean, Ahsoka becomes a character in the Clone Wars. If you don't know, the Clone Wars is basically the story of Anakin. What if Anakin had a Padawan when he was trying to be a Jedi Master, was on the Jedi Council, whatever. And so he gets a Padawan named Ahsoka. And it's like the story of the years of the Clone Wars that are in between, I think it's episode 2 and 3. Like what's happening with Anakin during those years and just the galaxy in general. It's a kid's show. It was on Cartoon Network. And I just have to say the first maybe 10 or 12 episodes are kind of hard to get through. But once you push past that, this show is so good. Like there's so many things that happen in it that I'm like, wow, are we sure this is for kids? There's like war crimes. There's death, lots of death. There's like people committing suicide. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm like, I cannot believe this was a children's show. And I know that people said that about the Clone Wars. And that's why they wanted them to make Ahsoka and do all this stuff because it is such a deep show for a kid's show and it teaches so many lessons apparently. And believe me, I'm learning them. I'm loving it. And it is really redeeming Anakin's character for me and showing me, I think it really clarifies his descent into madness and becoming Darth Vader and why he did it. And it humanizes him in a lot of ways. It makes me be like, yeah, like, wouldn't you do the same thing? Like this is, I don't know. And I love Ahsoka as a character. I think she's so cool. I think she's one of the cooler female characters in the Star Wars universe. I really like her. So we're watching that until we can watch Ahsoka and when we're finished with that, then we're going to go watch Ahsoka because I know Ahsoka is like builds off Clone Wars and I want to have all the pieces together like before I watch the show. Probably going to be a while because the Clone Wars is so long and it's taking us forever to get through them. But yeah, that is that. We're watching the Clone Wars. I have one very last thing for you guys and this is my recent favorite song. Let me pull up some lyrics for you while I talk to you guys about this. No one is going to be shocked by the fact that this is a 1975 song. I feel like this song highlights the last, I don't know, maybe like 6 months of my life and how I felt. And also I just think, I don't know, I feel like it's a very intelligent song in the way it's written. And so I'm going to tell you about it now. And if I misunderstand any of these lyrics, just know this is the way that I feel about the song and this is what I'm getting from it. But I'm pretty sure I have the correct read on this. So I'm going to go through some lyrics with you. So Change of Heart, the setting of this is Maddie Healy, lead singer, is talking to a girl at lunch and he is breaking up with her. And the reason he's breaking up with her, he's saying, is he just had a change of heart. The song's a little sarcastic. It's a little bit like, I just had a change of heart. He's like saying it like lightly, like, I just changed my mind, but really he means change of heart. Like he has changed his whole view. Like it isn't really just a light thing. It's the whole view, but he's telling the girl like it's light and, I just changed my mind, but actually it's more than that. So the song starts with, are we awake? Am I too old to be this stoned? Was it your best breasts from the start? They played a part. This part of the song I take as him recounting the relationships. He's like, was it your breasts from the start? They played a part. He's saying, was I really in love with you? Or was this something that I was kind of like, was I just like enraptured by certain parts of you? Like what's the deal with this? Then he says, for goodness sake, I wasn't told you'd be this cold. Now it's my time to depart and I just had a change of heart. So he's kind of referencing, he's telling her like, I have to go. I just had a change of heart. I wasn't told you'd be this cold. Clearly the girl is turning out to be something other than what he thought she was going to be. He says, I'll quote On the Road like a twat. On the Road is a really famous book by Jack Kerouac. I've never read it, but it's about a guy going on the road doing kind of crazy stuff. And I don't think that I would like the book, but it is had a profound impact on Maddie Healy and the 1975 in general. It's actually where they got the name 1975. It's from him reading On the Road. And I think 1975 was written inside his copy of it. That's why they called it that. But anyway, I'll quote On the Road like a twat and wind my way out of the city. Then he says, finding a girl who is equally pretty won't be hard. Oh, I just had a change of heart. Being like, he's not saying the girl's ugly. He's just saying there's lots of pretty girls out there. And it seems like to Matt, if you know their other music, he doesn't really care about looks as much as he cares about what's on the inside. In their song Love Me, he says, you got a beautiful face but got nothing to say. Like he cares more about your brain and what you have to say. So finding a girl who is equally pretty won't be hard. Like if that's the only thing you bring to the table, I don't really care, right? Then he says, now he starts referencing them actually sitting at the table when he's telling her, I just had a change of heart. I'm sorry, this isn't working. I got to go. He says, you smashed a glass into pieces. That's around the time I left. So she started acting crazy, obviously. That's around the time I left. And you were coming across as clever. I was actually like, oh, she's kind of smart. And then he says, then you lit the wrong end of your cigarette. So clearly you were coming across as clever. Then you started like, she's panicking. She's doing stupid stuff. So like, clearly she's like, by saying this, you're coming across as clever, then you lit the wrong end of your cigarette. She's starting to kind of panic. She's kind of freak out. So obviously she's like having an emotional reaction to Maddie telling her like, I just had a change of heart. This isn't working anymore. Then he says, you said I'm full of diseases. Your eyes were full of regret. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the song that I think is just very cheeky. It depicts exactly what kind of relationship he's leaving. He says, you said I'm full of diseases. Your eyes are full of regret. So the girl starts like kind of offending him, like shit talking him while he's saying, well, I just had a change of heart. He's saying it like, oh, I just had a change of heart. I'm not really giving her the real reason he's leaving her, that she's colder than he thought or any of these things. And then she starts shitting on him, even though he's giving her a nice reason, not the real reason. And then he says, so you said I'm full of diseases. Your eyes were full of regret. And then he says, and then you took a picture of your salad and put it on the internet. Basically saying like, you're trying to talk down to me. And I'm just like, hey, I'm giving you the nice reason. I'm going to walk. I just don't think that this is working. I had a change of heart. I'm just, not working. You start talking shit about me and you're coming at me from this like kind of holier than thou point of view. Like, oh yeah, well, look at you. And then you're so empty and vapid that you take a picture of your salad and put it on the internet. Like that says everything we need to know about this girl, right? He says, then she said, and then in quotes, I've been so worried about you lately. You look shit and you smell a bit. You're mad thinking you could ever save me. Not looking like that. So she's saying, the girl is saying, I've been so worried about you lately. You look terrible. She's trying to say, that she cares about him, but actually it's just like a backhanded thing. She's just talking shit about him while he's remaining calm through this whole thing. Remembering giving her the nice answer instead of the idea that like, you're kind of a shallow, vapid, not interesting person. He's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And she starts freaking out, acting ridiculously. And then she starts talking shit about him. You look shit and you smell a bit. You're mad thinking you could ever save me. Not looking like that. And then now it's Matty Healy talking himself. And he says, you used to have a face straight out of a magazine. So he used to think she was beautiful. Kind of like when you're in love with someone or when you're friends with somebody, you just see all this beauty in them. Then he says, now you just look like anyone. Now you're just any other girl. Not that impressed with you anymore. I just had a change of heart. Again, he gives you this light lyric. It's like, I just had a change of heart, but really it means so much more than that. I had a change of heart. I realized you are not the person I thought I was, and you're not the kind of person that I want to be with anymore. My heart has changed. I need to get out of here. I had a change of heart. Next lyric, he says, I feel as though I was deceived. I never found love in the city. This is a callback to their song, The City, from their self-titled album. And he says, if you want to find love, then you know where the city is, like falling in love in the city. And he says, obviously a callback to that. I feel as though I was deceived. I never found love in the city. I just sat in self-pity and cried in the car. Oh, I just had a change of heart, realizing like, this is not for me. I need to get out of here. This sucks. I wanted to have like this whirlwind romance. I'm realizing this girl's not for me. I need to get out. Next, he says, then she said, I've been so worried about you lately. You were fit. Now you're losing it. You played a part. This is how it starts. Then Maddie says, oh, I just had a change of heart. And then it goes, I just had a change of heart. And then throughout the song, there's this like, ha, ho, ho, ha, 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 like in the background. And it just feels like very like disorienting. And like, it feels like the vibe of the song is very much like he's saying it has a double meaning. I had a change of heart. Like, I just lightly decided not to do this. But also, I'm realizing that this is not for me. I'm changing everything about my life. I had a change of heart. I need to move on. I need to go my separate way. And the way you're acting says enough. I don't have to explain why I'm even doing it, because just the way you're acting clearly shows that why I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I can write a song and just write what you did in it and nothing else. And that will explain enough of your character. Chef's kiss. Love it. Love the way it was written. I like this. Here's the thing about Change of Heart that I really like. It's not very obvious, right? He's not straight up saying like, this girl is vapid and stupid and I don't like her. He's just listing actions she's did or things she said. And by doing that, we're seeing the full picture of this girl and we understand what he means when he says change of heart. I might have over-explained that, but you know what? It's my podcast. I do what I want. Anyways, guys, that's it for the episode. That was the last thing I want to talk about that I loved. I will see you guys next week. I hope that you loved my in-depth breakdown on the 1975 song. What could we do without it? It's been a while since I've ranted about them to you. So you needed this. You were due. You were due for this. But I'm going to hop off here and go on with the rest of my day. Make sure you rate the podcast 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment. Tell me about things. Yeah. And leave a review. 5 stars, please. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Shawty, you got me in love. 2020 vision, I could